Think about the absolute quietest place you have ever been. Maybe a basement in the middle of the night, or a forest after a heavy snowfall where the snow just, absorbs every tiny sound. Now multiply that by 40. 40 days of nothing but the wind, the heat, the sharp rocks of the Judean desert, and your own breathing. It wasn't just a quiet retreat, it was total, exhausting isolation. And by the end of it, the hunger isn't just a rumble in the stomach, it is a physical, aching crisis. That is where the story actually begins. Not with a grand, spectacular show, but in the dirt with a whisper. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. It is so incredibly subtle, isn't it? I mean, when we think of temptation, we usually picture something obviously terrible, a massive moral failure, a betrayal. But here, the very first test is simply about food, comfort, instant relief. When you are starving, bread is not a sin, it is survival. But the trap isn't about the bread itself, it is about the timing, and it is about the source. It is that voice saying, why wait? Why trust a process or a promise when you can just reach out and fix this yourself, right now? We all have our desert moments, don't we? Those seasons where we feel emotionally depleted, lonely, or just tired of waiting for things to get better. And that is exactly when the stones in our lives start looking like they should be bread. We look for the quick fix, the shopping spree, the doom scrolling, the relationship we know isn't healthy, but it fills the silence for a night. We try to manufacture comfort because sitting in the hunger, sitting in the quiet of the desert, is just too hard. But Jesus' response, quoting Deuteronomy, is this beautiful grounding shift in perspective. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. It is a statement of defiance, really. It is saying, my physical comfort, my immediate relief, is not the most important thing about me. I am more than my hunger. And sometimes staying in the desert, waiting on what is true rather than what is easy, is where the real life is found. But then the scenery shifts. The next test takes us out of the lonely desert and puts us right on the highest point of the temple in Jerusalem, looking down at this dizzying drop. The whisper changes its angle. It says, throw yourself down. Because, well, doesn't Scripture say the angels will catch you? It is this wild psychological pivot. If the first temptation was about physical comfort, this one is about identity and security. It is about demanding proof. Have you ever found yourself bargaining with the universe or with God when you are feeling deeply insecure? Like, okay, if this specific thing happens, then I will know I'm on the right path. Or, if you really love me, prove it by fixing this mess right now. We want the spectacular rescue. We want the drama, the sign, the undeniable confirmation that we are special and protected. It comes from a place of deep-seated insecurity. This need to constantly test the boundaries of love and commitment. But demanding a miracle to prove our worth is actually the opposite of trust. It is like a child constantly acting out just to see if their parents will still stop them. It is exhausting. Jesus fires back with, do not put the Lord your God to the test. And there is such a deep, quiet strength in that. He is refusing to play the game of validation. He doesn't need to jump off a building to prove who he is to the whisperer or even to himself. The challenge for us is learning to rest in that same quiet, unproven trust. It is deciding to believe we are held, even when there are no angels visibly catching us, and even when the path ahead looks incredibly steep and uncertain. Then we get to the third temptation, and this one is just, well, it is massive. Standing on a high mountain, looking out at all the kingdoms of the world in their glory. All this will be yours, the voice says, if you just bow down and worship me. It is the ultimate shortcut. Think about it. Jesus' entire mission was to bring hope and healing to the world. But the path to get there was going to be incredibly painful. It meant the cross. It meant suffering. And here, he has offered a shortcut. You can have all the influence, all the authority, all the good you want to do, right now. No pain, no sacrifice. You just have to make one small compromise. Just bow down this once. We see this play out in our own lives all the time, don't we? The temptation of the shortcut. We tell ourselves, well, if I just fudge the numbers this once, or if I play along with this toxic office culture, or if I compromise my integrity just a little bit, I will get to a position where I can actually do some real good. We convince ourselves that the end justifies the means. But the truth is, the means shape the end. If you bow to the wrong thing to get your power, the power you get will always belong to what you bowed to. You can't use a shortcut born of compromise to build something of lasting, genuine value. Jesus' response is immediate and absolute. Worship the Lord your God and serve him only. He cuts right through the illusion of the shortcut. He chooses the long, hard road of integrity over the immediate, compromised throne. Because he knew that some things are simply not for sale, no matter how grand the promise looks from the top of the mountain. So, how do we actually live this out? How do we build that kind of resilience before the desert winds start blowing? Because the truth is, the desert comes for everyone. It is not a matter of if, but when. If you look closely at how Jesus navigated those 40 days, he didn't try to wing it. He didn't rely on raw willpower or clever arguments in the moment. Every single time he was pushed, he went back to something he had already integrated deep into his mind and heart. He quoted scripture, not as a magic formula, but because those core truths were already his foundation. He knew who he was before he ever walked into the wilderness. That is the work we have to do in the quiet, ordinary days. We have to decide what our core convictions are when things are easy, so we don't have to debate them when things get hard. We need to know what we stand for before the temptation to compromise shows up at our door. And maybe, just maybe, we can start to view our own deserts a little differently. What if the dry seasons, the lonely times, the periods of waiting and hunger, what if they aren't just obstacles to get through? What if they are actually the places where we are prepared? The desert strips away the noise. It shows us what we actually rely on when all our usual comforts are gone. It is a harsh place, absolutely, but it is also a sacred one. It is where we find out what is truly unshakable within us. Thanks for sitting down with me today. Let's try to carry a bit of that quiet, desert-tested strength into whatever this week brings. Talk to you soon.